So for the next part, we're going to get into the sound clash. The concept is very simple. We both have chosen because it's Black History Month, right? So we've both chosen some aspiring Black people throughout the ages that we feel like let's say, their flowers were never paid to them, right? So we're going to ask you for your support. We're going to each present a case for why our chosen historical figure is essentially better than the other person's. And we need all of you to make some noise at the conclusion. And what we're also going to do is we're going to play a track underneath, and then it's on you to figure out what the track was. And we'll ask you at the end of each round. Nice and easy? Yeah, you with me? Can I get a big cheer? Yeah! All right, let's get into it. All right. So, go clicker. Excellent.
So, for the first round, period of time, basically before the 10th century, we've both picked pioneers, and for this round, I'm going to be representing Roman Emperor Septimius Severus. Has anyone heard about the Black Roman Emperor before? No, so I didn't know much about him before either. So I'm going to tell you a bit about him, and then Ali is going to talk about Cheddar Man. Have any of you guys heard about Cheddar Man?
Yes,
yeah, that's right.
Excellent.
Yeah. So he was the early remains. That's actually pretty cool. He's in the museum that we're in now, and he was the. Actually, I won't steal your shine. I'll let you tell us about him as part of the clash.
As we come to it. Yeah, exactly. All right, you ready to go? I'm stuck on something, but that's all right. Ready to go?
I think we can do mic close.
Ready to go?
Yeah, let's go. So, up first, as mentioned, Septimius Severus, Roman Emperor. I mean, we hear about Roman emperors all the time, Julius Caesar, but when I found out there was a Roman emperor all the way from Libya, Africa, I was pleasantly surprised. So he grew up in Libya. His family were part of the Equestrian dynasty in Libya, and they then moved on. He then moved on into the Italian Senate. So kind of like Game of Thrones, a bit more realistic. But he moved up through the ranks and eventually became Roman emperor. And so part of his conquests, he actually moved all the way through Europe and eventually landed in the UK, in England, and was one of the few Roman emperors that managed to tame the Scots. And if you've got any Scottish peers, you know that's no easy feat there. So he was able to unite England to some extent, and whilst he was at it, this lovely coin here was what they used as currency. And so if you're able to get a gold one in this condition, they go for about £25,000. So if anyone wants to get me anything for Christmas, good old Septimius coin would be great. And yeah, I think way to round it off, I think his engineering contribution was actually rebuilding large parts of Hadrian's Wall. So one of the biggest man-made structures across Europe was heavily damaged in the period that he was alive, so the early 1st and 2nd century, and he was actually able to rebuild it after he tamed the Scots, as it were. So for me, he is an amazing icon, just because I didn't even know black people existed that far back, let alone Roman emperors. So it's great to see that we were here in England all that while back. And a bit of context kind of outside slavery as well. So big up Septimius Severus, Roman emperor, and hopefully sooner or later I'll be able to get one of these coins. So I think it's over to you, Ali. Okay. You're going to tell us a bit about Cheddar Man.
Thank you. So, Cheddar Man, from sometime around 8000 BC, apparently. I actually visited Cheddar Caves, where Cheddar Man was found not too long ago. It's in the Mendip Hills area of outstanding natural beauty. And yeah, it's crazy. These caves were formed, essentially Britain was underwater for millennia. And these caves were formed underground through swirling currents. After some time, obviously the water level dropped and the caves became accessible. So going back as far as at least 8000 BC, we had the habitation of the caves by people who I guess we could call them Britons. So what's amazing about Cheddar Man is that he is the oldest, most complete skeletons that we found in the UK. Pretty amazing, right? So I know we're moving to a world where, you know, there's a lot more biracial, multiracial, mixed race sort of opportunities, but I've never seen a black person with blue eyes. I've never seen a black person with blue eyes. Apparently, this is, of course, slightly speculative, but they performed what they call shotgun sequencing, which is a genetic sort of coding method. And they've reinterpreted the data. And yeah, this is what you see on the right-hand side of the screen there, or the left to you, is what we believe Cheddar Man actually looked like. So yeah, as I mentioned, found in the beautiful caves. Of course, yeah, these sort of findings have quite powerful implications on Black British history. You know, people such as the author of this book over here, How Britain Ends, you know, might feel quite upset to hear that some of the first Britons were black, if that is in fact the case. So, kudos to Cheddar Man, basically. He's given us some really, really important measurements. He's completely changed the whole understanding of the history of Britain. And yeah, just think he's a brilliant finding, discovery. And yeah, that's it from my side.
So,
okay, so we're gonna yeah, we'll do some cheers. We'll do some cheers, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so if you think that Septimius Severus won this round, can I hear you make some noise?
Love it.
I'm just gonna skip calling out Cheddar Man because there's gonna be really. All right, so if you think Cheddar Man won this round, can I hear you make some noise? I think that round goes to Septimius Severus. Excellent.
Thank you. We'll take it.
And did you get the tracks?
Did you?
First track. Play it again. I heard someone say it. Excellent. Right. Well done. Second track. I'll help you out. Track? There he is!
That's right, yep.
Come on.
So that one is, Diamonds is Forever. There is a Kanye West version, but the original was actually by Dame Shirley Bassey for the James Bond theme tune. So, legendary track on both fronts there. So, we'll move on to the next round. The next round, we have the amazing Mary Jane Seacole. So I'm going to be representing Mary Jane. And then we've got Ali, who's going to be representing John Edmonstone. So let's get into it. So Mary Seacole, if you've never heard of Mary Jane Seacole, she was one of the amazing pioneers, born in Jamaica to a Jamaican doctoress as a mother, so kind of like a herbal doctoress. And her father was a Scottish general, so she was of mixed descent. And as mentioned, she grew up in the Caribbean. So she took up after her mother as a herbal doctoress, and she learned so much about natural remedies, authentic ways to heal people. And at the time, there was cholera outbreaks, there were different pandemics, and she was able to tap into what she had learned from her mother and from the previous descendants on how to take the therapeutic effects from plants, sometimes mixing them synergistically and bringing it able to heal people, which was quite remarkable in the early 1800s. And so after touring the Caribbean, which even for a normal person would have been quite difficult, but for a lady of mixed descent to be hopping on boats all around the Caribbean and then eventually to England as well is quite formidable. And so she moved to England at the time of the Crimean War. So quite ironic that we've got the kind of Ukrainian war going on in this time as well. But she wanted to support the war and the wounded soldiers out there at the time. And it was a similar time to that Florence Nightingale was looking for recruits as well. So at the time, she applied and was denied. applied again, was denied, and in the end, she decided, you know what, I'm just going to pack my stuff and head out there anyway. So she set up the British Hotel, which was like a rest home for wounded soldiers and injured infantry. And she was a real frontline lady. She was at the front line bringing soldiers back, putting her life at risk. And as mentioned, probably didn't get the respect and accolades that she deserves. I think Florence Nightingale is taught in most curriculums and is a household name, whereas Mary Seacole, who probably matched her efforts in terms of healing and helping people, only was recognized with this wonderful statue at St. Thomas's Museum in 2016. So she was probably one of the first doctors from the Caribbean in Europe. She was an entrepreneur. She set up businesses. She traveled around the world, and I think she's really a true inspiration for us all. And with the theme being of Black history, celebrating our sisters, I think she's someone that we can all definitely look up to.
Absolutely.
So I think I'll hand over to you. Do you guys want to guess the track before we move on, in case you forget it? That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Good on all of you. Good on all of you. I'm going to ask you for the theme of the music at the end and see if you get it. See if you get it. Okay. So, John Edmonstone, born sometime apparently around 1793. I mean, records in 1700s. Who knows, really? But John Edmonstone's life is like a real example of from rags to riches. So he was born into slavery in 1793. And John found himself in the employ of one of the more famous naturalists of the time. His name is Charles Waterton. And he wrote this book that you can see here. So Charles used to go around from location to location, used to visit the Amazon rainforest a lot, and he used to essentially categorize different species of animal. And so John essentially worked with Charles Waterton. He taught him the art of taxidermy. If you don't know what taxidermy is, right here you can see some stuffed birds. Yeah, it doesn't happen so much anymore, fortunately. But it was very, very useful back in the day. So although John isn't specifically mentioned in Charles Waterton's book, which is just another example of whitewashing Black history, he was clearly influential in Charles's life. So John learned how to stuff birds for preservation, and coincidentally, he became free, and he moved to Edinburgh. Random, yeah, I agree. Lo and behold, oh, that one's not supposed to come up yet. We'll jump over here. Lo and behold, imagine who would later move into a property just round the corner from John Edmonstone. None other than Charles Darwin. So, Charles essentially was studying, I think he was studying medicine, I want to say, at Edinburgh, but he really did not enjoy his course. So he was looking for ways around to drop out, and he came across John, who obviously was very skilled in taxidermy. And yeah, John basically took him under his tutorship, and he taught him how to stuff birds. Apparently there was a fee involved, but was he getting paid his actual rate? Who knows? So before long, Charles was a capable taxidermist, and then he went on to board the HMS Beagle, traveled the world, and made some of the most profound discoveries of our time, including writing the seminal theory of evolution by natural selection. So clearly the effect that John had on Charles was very profound. He was unfortunately, again, never credited in the Origin of Species, but ironically, Charles, they had this idea at the time of white superiority. Is it still the same? Who knows? But yeah, ironically, Charles would then publish The Origin of Species, which would completely refute the publicly held notion of white superiority. So John is certainly one of those figures that you wouldn't have heard about, but yeah, his impact speaks for itself, and I think John deserves just, yeah, he needs to be sung his praises. So yeah, John Edmonstone.
Nice, nice. Any guesses for this track?
You got it?
You're gonna sing it,
got it?
Mally. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Soul to soul, back to life.
Yeah, that's
Back
it.
to
Yeah,
life. Back to life.
yeah.
Life to reality.
That's it. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Ooh. So, if you think that Mary Jane Seacole took that round, let me hear you make some noise. And if you think that John Edmonstone took that round, let me hear you make some noise. Ooh, that was a tough one.
That was a close one. That was a close one.
I think we're going to have to run that one again.
Go on then.
If you think Mary Jane Seacole won that round, let me hear you make some noise. It definitely got louder.
Yeah.
If you think John Edmonstone won that round, let me hear you make some noise.
2-0.
2-0.
Just say
2-0, but it's close, man. It's close, that one.
We should have had the decibel.
I don't know. We should have had the
Next time
decibel
we'll set
meter.
up a
You're right. You're right. It's not fair because Clive is a natural public speaker. And I'm the quiet guy behind the decks. Okay.
So, shall we move on to the next round?
On to the next round.
1900s, probably more to the later side of 1900s. We have Onwurah and Maggie Aderin-Pocock. So I'm going to be taking the honourable lady on the left, and Ali's going to take the lady on the right. Again, celebrating our sisters as part of Black History Month. So this wonderful lady came up in Newcastle. She was born to, again, I think it was a Nigerian father and an English mother. And she grew up in Newcastle, which is quite a industrial area, loads of boats and ships. And she said while she was visiting the History Museum, she really was fascinated with this ship called the Turbiner, which was one of the fastest steamboats at the time. And she said she was always inspired by how it looked different and what made it the best in class at the time. So that's what spurred her on and led her to pursuing a career in engineering. And she also was part of the anti-apartheid movement back in the 1980s and 90s as well. So after that, she transitioned into being a woman in tech very early on. And so back in the day, if you wanted to make a phone call to someone, you'd usually have to dial the number, someone would be on the switchboard, they'd connect you up to the switchboard. Maybe some of you younger ones might not remember, but they'd literally have to connect your call up with wires, and then you'd be connected to the next person. And she was responsible for making these PCD chips, which effectively eliminated the switchboard operator and meant that you could get your calls connected directly. So again, a really amazing piece of kit that she was able to develop. And after that, she went to work at Ofcom, which if you watch any naughty programs in the evening and you're not happy, you tend to report them to Ofcom. And so it was great to have some representation in that role and have someone that looked like us heading up that department as well. And so if that wasn't an amazing career enough after that, she became Shadow Minister in the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. I think this was in 2020, and it was great to see her have that representation, not only in government, but an important part of STEM in terms of decision making and policy going forward as well. So for someone that has kind of come up in the more recent times, been through so many challenges, I can imagine it mustn't have been easy growing up in Newcastle in the early 60s, but she took her passion for engineering, moved into tech, moved into Ofcom and diversion, and then landed in politics. So I think she's a great example of showing that sky is actually the limit, and once you figure out your lane and what you want to do, there's many things that you can go on to achieve. So before we move on to Dr. Maggie, can anyone recognize this? That's all right.
I was like, if you didn't get this one.
Can you fill me in? Craig David. You had to feel it all. So, Ali, over to you.
Okay. Oh God, I think I'm a bit rusty on this one, but we'll see how it goes. So, Dr. Maggie Aderin-Pocock. Here she is, looking extravagant as always. So, Dr. Maggie was born in Islington in London in the late 60s. She studied just around the corner, actually, Imperial College. She studied physics and was most certainly ahead of her time. She would later go on to work in numerous roles, UK Ministry of Defence, and sort of earlier in her career, just after she completed her PhD in mechanical engineering, she learned how to build microscopes. Oh no, other way around, telescopes. There we go.
Yeah.
So this telescope is in, I think, somewhere in South America.
That's right.
Do you know where?
Peru, I think.
Peru, exactly.
Yeah.
Peru in South America. So she helped in essentially bringing together the main portion of the telescope, so understanding the lenses, the moving parts, and using this telescope, we've been able to take some of the most profound pictures in the world. Do you know what this telescope is called? Do I know what this telescope is?
I was going to say, I hope you're going to tell us.
It's not the James Webb. So over on the right here, you can see essentially gas clouds and dust out in space. This is what a star looks like before it's formed. It's just a mess of hydrogen and dust. Crazy, right? Anyway, Dr. Maggie would later go on to work in the UK government. So she held a role as the Commissioner of Race and Ethnic Disparities. They actually recently published a report, recommend checking that out, talking about how essentially the same thing we're talking about, the lack of representation of black people in the STEM fields. So she was, quite pivotal to that piece of research. The conclusion was upsetting. Apparently, there is good representation in STEM. I'm not sure I believe it. But anyway, Maggie is a keen hiker, and she actually spent some time at Stonehenge trying to understand essentially why the Stonehenge was built. There are rumors, speculation, maybe also data to suggest that it was an equinoctial marker. So essentially you could see on the summer and winter equinoxes, the sun rising and setting behind what they call the seeing stone. And she helped essentially with some of that work. And more famously, Dr. Maggie was the presenter of The Sky at Night. Anyone ever watched that program? Excellent. It's probably not as good as it used to be, but there was a time where it was amazing. And Dr. Maggie was the first black presenter for The Sky at Night. And I wonder if it's actually for any show on the BBC, because she was in there early.
Yeah.
Dr. Maggie, another testament to why the sky is not the limit, because she's out here in space. All right.
Anyone recognize this one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
It's called Incredible. Wicked, Jungle is incredible.
Another great track.
So let me hear you make some noise if you think that round went to Onwurah. Let me hear you make some noise if you think that round went to Dr. Maggie Aderin-Pocock. Yes! I'm holding this against you all week.
Nice, nice. That means the
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. She does have a Barbie after. You're right. That was this year. Yeah.
Oh,
come on, Maggie.
We'll have
come
to
on,
add that
Maggie.
to
We need that one in the slides.
Yeah.
Thank you. You should do this presentation next time.
So that means the last round means something, and we could potentially head into a tie. So for the 2000s, so people born just before this and impacting the 2000s, we have Steve Bartlett and Dr. Anne-Marie Imafidon. So,
All right.
You're up. No, I'm up first.
No, you're up first.
Yeah.
You're up first.
So, Mr. Steve Bartlett, this guy I think is maybe just turned 30, but as you can see, he's achieved so much already in such a short career. And my first interactions with Steve came from the Diary of the CEO podcast. And it started off kind of engaging with different CEOs, finding out about their journey. And it's grown to be one of the biggest podcasts in the UK. And pretty sure if there's someone that you're interested in regardless of what field, whether it's football, sports, media, science, nutrition, he's probably interviewed someone on it. And in mental health as well, there's some really interesting ones on mental health. He came up from starting Social Chain, which is a social media company, social media marketing. And I think when it started in 2018 or 19, He sold it in 2022 for just about 700 million, so not too shabby, not too shabby. And then also, again, great for representation on TV. You've got the Dragon's Den. I used to love watching that show when I was growing up. I used to pitch my elevator pitch. And so seeing Steve show up in his chain and t-shirt and baggy jeans, and giving his perspective on business and which ones to back has been really rewarding and inspiring as well. You never know, maybe we'll have to take Vanta STEM onto
yeah.
And then also he's had great involvements in ecology, which is a sustainable startup where you can offset your carbon footprint by buying trees all over the world. So another great initiative that he uses to support his businesses. And then again, he's also been featured on the Forbes 30 Under 30. So yeah, I think it shows that you're making some dollar and some pounds if you're on that.
Right, isn't
so definitely in the right direction. So yeah, someone I definitely look up to. I think he's done a great job so far. And yeah, maybe one day we'll get him on our podcast as well. So big up Steve Bartlett.
Big up Steve Bartlett. Big up Steve Bartlett. Can you guess the song? Yeah.
Do you know who it's by? Anyone guess the artist? Go on, Ali.
Artful Dodger and Romina Johnson.
Yeah.
All right.
Over me? To you, yeah. Last round, go out with a bang.
Anne-Marie Imafidon, putting the Don in Imafidon. So, this woman is a legend. I'm just going to say it straight up. She comes from a family of, I mean, they're not even all on here. I think there's 7 kids. I don't know what they were feeding them in that house. I don't know what sort of educational program they had in their house, but I think 5 of them were at Cambridge or Oxford at age 13. Anne-Marie Imafidon is the youngest person to ever go to Oxford. She studied mathematics, and yeah, I mean, she left a mark. And this is just a small testament. In this family, 5 people have MBEs.
Christmas parties must be fun.
Anne-Marie, for a brief period of time, was the co-host, I guess, of Countdown. First blackface on Countdown, loved that. She replaced Carol Vorderman, or was it probably Rachel Riley? That she replaced briefly for a period of time. And safe to say that she was quicker mathematically than most of the people who have been on this show. So yeah, that was an amazing opportunity for representation. Anne-Marie is a leading voice for women in tech. So she wrote a book called She's in Control, which essentially highlights some of the issues for women in tech and some of the barriers that they face. It's a very male-dominated world, and Anne-Marie unashamedly challenges that idea and teaches young women or professionals already looking to advance in STEM how to take control of their careers. It's probably worth a read even if you aren't in tech. Right? Finally, Anne-Marie founded and is the CEO of STEMettes, an organization which is not-for-profit. It's focused at getting young women in STEM. She targets an age range of 14 because really it's all about getting them interested in the sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics before they're choosing their university courses. So she's super active in this area, organizes conferences. She's taking STEMettes all around the country. Hoping to collaborate with her one day as well. Recently, Anne-Marie is one of the leading voices for essentially highlighting some of the issues with AI and some of the, how shall I put it, potential barriers that Black people might face when it comes to AI. I'm not sure if you've noticed, facial recognition technology isn't necessarily optimized to recognize Black faces in the same way. So these are some of the challenges that she's looking to address and overcome. She's going to go on to do great things if she hasn't already, which, I mean, understandably she has. Anne-Marie Imafidon, what a legend. Anne-Marie Imafidon.
Anyone recognize this tune? That's right. That's right. Name of the track?
Yeah,
That's right. Love it. Love it. So I think
you guys are amazing.
we've gone over slightly, but I think we can run maybe run Big Scoop. And then
Yeah, we'll run Big Scoop. We'll run Big Scoop. Before we get into that, though,
We've got a vote.
let me hear you make some noise if you think that Stephen Bartlett took that round.
Radio silence.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
I set the slides before that. So
I just finished listening to that episode. It's heavy. It's heavy. Yeah. It's controversial, but also Jada is from the streets. So I rate her for how she grew up. Let me hear you make some noise if you think Anne-Marie and Imafidon took that round. Supporting our sisters for Black History Month.
Love it.
Excellent. Love that. Love that.
So I think we call it a draw.
We tied. We tied. I was expecting you to win.
I can live with that.
To be honest.
I can live with that.
Yeah, I can definitely live with that.
Do you wanna
You're all amazing. Do you know what the theme was for the music? Do you know what the theme was? Yes, yes. Except for obviously, we couldn't play music pre-1000, so we started from 1970.
Yeah.
You got it. Nice one. Nice one. Nice one. Thank you. You've all been amazing. We absolutely love that. So before we finish, we'd just like to run one last thing. It's a piece of spoken word which was put together by our good friend Big Scoop. He is a prolific poet, spoken word artist. He's amazing. This guy's way with words is unmatched. So I could spend some time bigging him up, or I can just let him get into it. I think we should do the second.
Yeah. Ooh, effects.
Oh, thanks.
You see, we played our part in modernization, but they want you to think our history is rooted in colonization. To put it in black and white, history isn't just all Caucasian. Black people have played more than a role and have given more than dedication, and it's evident. The oldest intact skeleton is a man of pure black melanin. Known as the first Brit Cheddar man, his DNA has given us measurements. You can try whitewash history, but black will always be relevant. And this information is golden. Throughout history, we had the most, but we also had black Tudors and Romans. Men like Septimius Severus were emperors, and as men they stood tall. He ruled over a nation and even rebuilt Hadrian's Wall. And everything I'm saying is facts, and there's sources for confirmation. You could try and name all of the great contributors and have a lifelong compilation. They say that the sky is the limit, and it must be true, because we got more stars than a constellation. Black people fought in both world wars and somehow never get mentioned, but we continue to elevate. Dedication is what we demonstrate, but for the sake of the next generation, we must continue to educate. And what I'm telling you is straight out the fax machine, because there's too many black legends that remain unseen.
Thank you all for joining. We've been Vanta STEM. I'm Ali. This is Clive. Please follow us on the socials, Instagram, LinkedIn. If you know anyone who's looking for mentoring, tell them to get in touch. And yeah, hopefully you'll see us again here at the Science Museum, or you'll maybe see me playing a gig in a club somewhere around London. Bless. Thank you all. You've been amazing. Thank you so much.
Turn the lights on so you can get out safely. Thank you very much, guys.